Committee on Parole is called back to order. The time is 11:51. Our next case is Mr. Paul Smith. Mr. Smith, would you please give us your full name and DOC number?
Paul Smith, 74-92.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Smith, let me explain our process to you. We're going to conduct a parole interview with you. I'm going to read some information into the record. Then we're going to allow those persons who wish to have some input to speak. Present today in support of your parole is Miss Paula Smith, who is your sister. She'll be speaking. Miss Kawanda Smith, one of your sisters, is here but will not be speaking. Peyton Smith, your daughter, is here in person and would like to speak. Angela Smith, your mother, is here but doesn't wish to speak. Azaria Gray, your girlfriend, is here and does wish to speak. And Loudon Scott, your daughter, is here and doesn't wish to speak as well. In opposition, we have Mr. Randall Meyer with the Jefferson Parish District Attorney's Office. After we conduct the interview, you'll have an opportunity to say whatever you'd like to say to the panel before we vote. Do you understand our process?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is the matter of Paul Smith, DOC number 704092, date of birth December the 12th of 1989. He's a second-class offender. He has an adjusted good time date of July the 5th of 2025, a parole eligibility date of February the 25th of 2023, and a full-term date of July 4th of 2026. He is currently serving a 10-year sentence on the charges of racketeering, conspiracy to distribute cocaine, conspiracy to distribute heroin, possession with intent to distribute cocaine, possession with intent to distribute oxycodone, and 2 counts of perjury, having been adjudicated a habitual offender. Is all of that accurate, Mr. Smith?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Smith, your case has been assigned to me, so I'll begin our process of interviewing you, okay? Mr. Smith, how old are you, sir?
33,
And how long have you been in prison?
8.5.
8.5 years?
Yes, sir.
Tell me a little bit about your education. How far did you go in school?
I stopped going to school in 9th grade.
Why?
Following the wrong crowd.
All right, tell me a little bit about that. How old were you in the 9th grade?
I was about like 17, 18.
All right. So tell me about following with the wrong crowd.
Me being young, just following with the wrong crowd, and led up to the wrong decision that I was making. And like the man that I came in as today,
Well, we'll get to all that. I want to talk about you and your history, okay?
yeah, well,
Well,
Just-
just answer my questions. We'll get there, okay? Now, what kind of student were you when you were in the 9th grade?
I was a good student. I loved it, like football and stuff like that, but I got derailed by, making the wrong choices.
All right, did you use drugs back then?
Yeah, I smoked marijuana.
When did you start using drugs?
Started smoking marijuana when I was about 15.
All right. And did you progress to anything besides marijuana?
Yes, sir.
When you say you're following with the wrong crowd, you've been accused of being a member of the Harvey Hustlers, were you?
Yes, sir.
When did you start involvement in that gang?
I started hanging around those individuals around when I was about 15.
All right. The dates of your convictions would suggest that when you were around 15 years old is when you started being involved in all of these conspiracies to distribute drugs, et cetera. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So tell me how you got involved with them.
Just trying to follow the wrong crowd. Thought it was cool, making the poor decisions, and I thought that was the way to go. Because
What was your family life like? Where did you live?
I lived with my mother.
Okay. And who else lived in the household with you?
It's me and my 3 sisters.
And so what was your role in the gang at 15? What did you start doing with them?
It wasn't really no role. It was just me just hanging around individuals, thinking it was cool. Like it wasn't.
Okay, well, I accept that, but what were you doing? I mean, these guys were distributing drugs. They were getting drugs from out of state, bringing them in, selling them all over the city. What did you do? How did you help them do that?
At the age of 15, I was, just being young, being a hard knucklehead, just run around being bad.
Well, I hear all of those descriptions. I want to know specifically what you did.
I used to sell marijuana
Okay.
and, things like that.
Okay, where'd you sell the marijuana and who'd you sell the marijuana to?
I sold the marijuana around the neighborhood.
Okay. And how long did that progress? When did you progress to the heroin, the oxycodone, all the other stuff that you were charged with and convicted of?
Well, starting off selling marijuana, it leaded up to, harder drugs like cocaine and, stuff like that. And once it progressed with the cocaine and everything, I no longer hung with those individuals. Like I never, from like 2005 to about 2007, 2008, I hung around those individuals and I was doing those type of activities. I was selling drugs, I was involved in that type of activity. But from 2008 until I got indicted, I no longer hung around there and hung with those individuals, but I still was involved in the selling of cocaine and, making.
Well, tell me what that means. What is that like? What do you mean? How were you still involved if you no longer hung around with them? What was your role then in 2008 after that?
Like, it was no role. Like, 'cause I didn't hang with those individuals, but I still sold drugs.
Well, that's what I'm asking
Yeah,
you. What did you do? What were you selling and to whom were you selling?
Yeah, I was selling cocaine and I sold it to, people around. I had customers, that I used to sell them to.
Okay. And how long did that go on for?
Basically, until I laid up and gone to jail.
Okay. And when did you end up going to jail? When did you pled guilty to the charges, the original charges? When did you plead guilty to those charges?
In 2015.
September the 18th, is that what it was? September 18th of 2015?
Yes, sir.
And what did you plead guilty to?
Racketeering, conspiracy to distribute heroin, conspiracy to distribute cocaine.
And all those things were true?
I never sold heroin.
Okay.
But it was a conspiracy to distribute heroin.
Correct. You involved in it. You may have not sold it yourself, but you did something to help somebody else who ultimately sold it. Is that fair enough to say?
I knew, probably there's something about, heroin, but I never sold it. But
Okay.
I pleaded guilty to distribute, conspiracy to distribute heroin.
And you had a plea agreement?
Just
Specific sentence you were going to get if you cooperated?
No, sir. I never took a plea agreement to cooperate. I just, took my time, and that's how the perjury ended up.
You pled guilty.
I plead guilty.
You pled guilty to the charges.
Yes, sir.
And when you pled guilty to the judge, you either wrote out a statement of facts, or a judge recited a statement of facts, or a DA recited a statement of facts. And in court under oath, you agreed that that was true.
Yes, he asked out in the game. I said, yes, I was.
Okay. All right. And then you were called to testify at a trial under oath and asked basically those same questions.
Right.
And you said something different.
I said I wasn't in no game. I did.
And why was that?
Like I was young, illiterate to the law, not knowing the situation I put myself in.
Mr. Smith,
Yes, sir.
I'm not going to accept that.
Yes, sir.
You knew exactly what you were doing. Why did you lie? Were you afraid of the people in the gang? Were you afraid of some sort of retribution to you? I mean, don't tell me you got up there and you were young and you didn't know what to say. You knew darn well what you were saying.
Yes, sir.
And you knew it was a lie.
Yes, sir.
Why?
Because I didn't want to say that I was in a gang.
Why is that? You'd said it already.
I did.
So why didn't you want to say it then?
Because I didn't want to look like I, was just being in the gang. I really was, ain't know what was going on. I really ain't,
Now, look, today is the day for you to come clean. I know all the I've read everything.
So,
I know exactly what you were doing, and I know how you were doing it. And I know why you lied. So don't sit here and BS me in this board. If you want some help from us, you better be honest. Now, I want to know why you lied. You don't tell me, oh, I was young, I didn't know what I was doing. You knew darn well what you were doing because you went to prison for 10 years for doing it. So tell me why you did it.
I didn't want to, admit to it. I was in denial.
You had already admitted to it.
Yes, I Yeah.
That's your story, that you're gonna stick with that? That's where you're gonna go and you ain't going any further with that? Okay, we'll move on.
No, not really. It just, well, you can see, he asked me out in the gang. I told him I wasn't in the gang. I feel guilty of being in the gang. So, I should have never even lied. And I should have just told him, I was in a gang. I should have never even, lied to him. Put myself,
Let's talk a little bit about what you've done while you've been in prison. Okay, what sort of programs have you taken that have been helpful to you while you've been in prison?
I took, a multitude of programs. And,
What programs have you taken?
Drug Anonymous, I took AA, living in Brown, risk management, phase 1, phase 2, parenting.
What were some of the most important programs to you?
Most important program to me was like living in balance, anger management. It taught me, how to balance my life and, not to make decisions on my bad emotions and, take time and, not to jump to conclusions all the time. And it taught me
What tell me about that. What do you mean not to jump to conclusions all the time?
like not to react before I think.
Okay, and what sort of things that you learned about not reacting would be helpful to have prevented from where you ended up being?
Like if I would dissect the situation, knowing what I was getting myself into, I would have made a better decision than I did.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what you did get yourself into. What do you think about what you were doing?
I think about, that I was poisoning my community and I take full responsibility for that. And I think about it every day that I'm known for doing that. And I take full, promotion.
How many people do you think are dead as a result of the drugs you sold?
Probably a lot.
And how long did you sell drugs?
And I started, selling drugs as I was 15.
You say you were no longer affiliated with the gang, so you went out on your own. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I no longer hung with those individuals, but I never stopped selling drugs, so it don't make it right.
Now, the district attorney is going to speak to us, and his position is you were a part of that gang up until you went to prison, and you lied about it when you perjured yourself. Now, you're telling me you really weren't part of that gang? You just for a couple of years, and then you were out? Is that what I'm hearing?
When I got indicted, I no longer hung with those individuals. That's
Okay, and you got indicted when? Okay, but from 2005, you said you quit around 2007, 2008. Now, what about 2008 till the time you got indicted? You said you no longer hung around with those individuals.
right.
You were independent seller of drugs yourself. Is that true? So you weren't in that gang for 8 years?
No longer hung around them, but I was.
Well, you could be in business with someone and don't hang around with them. Were you in this gang?
I wasn't in business with them.
Were you in the Harvey Hustlers
Yes, I was.
the whole time?
Yes, I was.
So why did you tell me you weren't? You got out of it a couple of years ago because you know darn well being in a gang isn't going to go over well with this group.
Yes, sir.
You better be honest.
Yes, sir.
So why were you trying to mislead us? We're not stupid.
I was just trying to,
What were you trying to do?
I was just trying to tell the truth.
Well, I don't think you're telling the truth. If you were in this gang up until the time you got indicted and you're trying to make us think you had got out of it 8 years before.
I was labeled. I had a label on my back that I was in a gang. So, up before I got indicted, I was in a gang.
What would be your plan when you get out?
I have my cousin, he's a supervisor at an offshore company called Superior. And, he have the job waiting on through the, my release. And, I got my family support that's going to support me throughout my sobriety plan. I'm going to continue to take.
Tell me about your sobriety plan.
My sobriety plan is, I'm going to continue to take NA throughout the rest of my life. I feel like I need it.
Are you a drug addict?
But I was
Are you a drug addict?
Yes, sir.
And you said you smoked marijuana. What else did you use besides marijuana?
I feel like I'm an addict because I'm worse than them because I was selling it. So,
Well, okay, that's a different story.
Right.
Are you a drug addict?
no, sir. But I-
So you don't have a drug problem. You don't, that's not an issue for you.
no, sir.
Well, why did you talk to me about a sobriety plan?
My sobriety plan.
Why do you need a sobriety plan if you don't have a drug problem?
So I want to continue to, give back and help the community.
Well, I'm not sure what that means. You're not a drug addict, you don't use drugs, so that's not an issue for you. Why do you have a sobriety plan? A sobriety plan is AA meetings, and you said it, you mentioned, I'll go to meetings.
So when I went to start going to the AA meeting, I found out that I had an addiction. And it wasn't using drugs, it was selling drugs. I was addicted to what the drugs could do for me. I was addicted to the money. So that's why, I put it that.
Okay, all right. Okay. That may be the most honest thing you've said to me yet. Let's talk a little bit about your disciplinary record. You've been in prison for how many? 8 years, I think you said?
8.5.
And you've had 5 write-ups, and they all occurred within the last 3 years. What was that about?
I got, caught up with the phone situation.
Caught up with what?
A phone,
Phone situation? Tell me about that. What do you mean a phone situation?
like they found the phone and they said the 3 conversation calls and said.
Okay, I'm sorry. They did what? They found a phone?
Yes,
Okay, where did they find the phone? Did you have a phone?
it was in a record.
Okay, so not your phone, but you got charged with it.
Yes, I did.
Okay, and then that would have been what, in 2020?
Yes, sir.
First time?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, what about the other write-ups shortly thereafter? You had one in April of 2020, October of 2020, February of 21, March of 21, and June of 22. What were those about?
The next one was about, I had got some socks while I was at work. A guy brought me some socks and, and I went in with it. And when I got to the gate, the soldiers took it and they were saying that I couldn't have it. I didn't have permission to bring it in. And when they rolled me up on that, I take full responsibility for that.
Okay, that was the 30E or that was the contraband?
That was the theory.
Okay, what was the next contraband?
I had a UBS wire in my locker that came with a tablet, but they told us to turn them in. But I never turned mine in because I was using it to hook it up to the JP because some of the wires be bad. So, I take full responsibility for that too. So I had it in my locker.
Then you had defiance and aggravated disobedience. What was that about?
And the last one was about, it was just a misunderstanding. The lieutenant asked, she walked up on me, on the yard and she asked to sit down. So I got up and I let her sit down. But in the meanwhile, she actually had my hand on the tab. So she asked, let her sit, but she thought I passed something, but I never passed something. And, she wrote me up on that. And I tried to appeal it and they denied the appeal, but they suspended the write-up and but I couldn't win my appeal.
Did you ever get your GED?
Yes, sir.
When did you get that?
21, I
Okay.
believe.
Any further education besides your GED?
Well, I got my GED. I didn't really get no trade work, due to my job at maintenance. I work at maintenance. I didn't learn how to weld, carpentry. I didn't learn, how to drive heavy equipment because we be on the bulldozers, the backhoe, forklift, assets that I can use when I do get into society. And, thanks to, Ward Bickham, I even got the chance to be in the hobby shop. And I didn't, when I first did get in the hobby shop, I didn't know how to really take like, but, I got in there and, it's something that I love. I got a passion for it. And we got an awesome crowd that grew up here that give me a chance to like, showcase my work and, support my family the right way.
What is your current job now?
Maintenance.
And what's your trustee status?
Well, I'm a trustee on Compound 4.
Have you ever had a job on the outside, a real job?
Honestly, I never had a job when I was
And how old were you when you came to prison?
24, 25.
And the only way you made any money back then was selling drugs? Warden, what can you tell us about Mr. Smith?
Oh, Paul. Well, the good stuff. He works hard. He's a trustee, and he has been doing well with our hobby craft and our shows and stuff like that. As you mentioned, the write-ups he's had. Last one was in 22. I wish he was, he's doing a little bit better than that. I wish a little more honest on some of the write-ups that we talked about there. But that's my concern is he needs to be heading in a better direction with the write-up.
Thank you. Mr. Freeman?
Okay, Mr. Smith, like he says, we're pretty knowledgeable. All of us have a background in some minds in probation and parole.
Yes, sir.
And I can understand, I'll be honest with you, when you're on that stand, you're worried about looking like a rat. You was worried about retribution too. I mean, a gang member gets up there and testifies against other gang members. That's trouble, isn't it? I mean, it could lead to death or harm of your family. So you're saying that they never cut a deal with you?
They gave me a deal to take 8 years, so I pleaded guilty because I felt that was my best.
Yeah, but they never said that we're gonna give you this, but you gotta testify against this person or that person. So they just put you up there and put you in a bind.
I got a subpoena. I never knew I was gonna get a subpoena. And I got up there.
Well, I know how that works. I'm around the court system a lot, and that's one thing I do not like. The transitional work program, why were you removed from it?
Like when I first got my time, I got shipped from Devon Parish. I went up north and I was transitioning to a work program.
Mm-hmm.
While participating in the work program, I never knew that I had a detainer for perjury. So the whole time that I was, working, I had a detainer and I never knew. So they came back and got me and brought me back to Devon Parish, and that's how I get the additional 10 years.
Oh, okay. And once you were a habitual offender, they never would let you back and work at least. You wasn't eligible. Okay.
But I do think ACI was the best thing that ever happened to me because I feel like it was saved from the path that I was going down.
Do you think you gonna have any problems with your ex-gang affiliates when you get out?
I'm saying? I don't even have a desire for that type of life.
Are you gonna be living in that same neighborhood though? Where they?
So I'm gonna be in Orleans for the time being.
Okay, I have no further questions.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from your supporters. Ms. Paula Smith. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Paula Smith. I was in Nashville as a dispatcher, in first protect also. And from the time I've been dealing with him and him being incarcerated, the growth in him is mature. I really feel like I believe that he is capable of being a better person that he has learned and matured to be. Like so support his family that we love and we love him also. I watch him grow from the boy that always the trouble and always the unemployment. I really believe that he was really and I'm on the support him as I've been going as he was incarcerated. Like before he was incarcerated, he wasn't no problem child. He was just being a boy. Like he was in himself, he following along people. They were leading him to this one thing that he can't believe he's doing. I think it's full responsibility. He, then, like, every time I hold him, accountability, he takes me. I get the child on the child life, so I really do believe that he was a change to us and for everybody that he is the name that he. I was scared that when he first came because he had never been incarcerated, he had worked with it. So it was a lot of them. He showed us, he took us that he committed, like he's been up in the whole time and he still was out there family, he never broke, he was just staying and sharing, doing whatever people could do. I want to shout at him.
Thank you very much, Ms. Smith. We appreciate your comments. Ms. Peyton Smith?
He misread a lot of and I would say he just even graduated and put the eighth grade. I am going to take eighth grade this year, and I will speak to this day when I'm starting to begin I am dead this year, and I will speak. Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Smith. I was able to glean from all of that you love your dad very much and you want him home and he's very supportive of you. And you're asking us to send him home to you. So thank you. Mrs. Zaria Gray?
Hi, my name is Aaron Gray. I'm a licensed educational journalist. I write this letter. And support of my significant other calls me. Every day for parole. Paul and I have shared a life together for approximately 12 years. We also share two beautiful daughters together. Paul is an amazing partner, father, son, brother, friend. Paul is caring, funny, generous, loving, smart, and intelligent. Paul is also man. Don't have that I love. He loves to read, he loves to cook. He also loves to build things. This is one of the many things that we have learned in his time serving at DCI. So I obtained his UB and many other skills while being at DCI. Paul takes pride in almost everything he does, especially with the needs and values stuff with the dog. He's a leader and encourager as well. He has learned the importance of patience and managing his parents. As a friend first and a significant other second. I simply watched a young boy I was new turn into a well-mannered individual. Since then on this life-changing journey. As you asked me 2 years ago about Paul's ability to change, I may have second guessed other times. But now I can speak with confidence and 100% sure that Paul would not be a real offender, pose any undue risk to society or violating the law. I definitely can attest to Paul having a ability to change. As someone who truly loves and adores the community, I can assure you that I have made the necessary adjustments to make sure that Paul resides in a stable and substantial environment. that will be beneficial to his present and his future life changes. As a significant other, I will make sure he continues to support what he's accomplished here at UCI. I will also be the support for him financially and mentally, as I commit myself to making sure I support Paul rehabilitation in order for him to thrive. At his full potential, I am asking you to see Paul fit and honorable for parole.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Gray. We appreciate your comments. Mr. Smith, is there anything you'd like to say before the board votes?
Yes, Randy.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Myers. I forgot about you.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay, we have Mr. Randy Meyer on the speaker. Go ahead, Mr. Meyer.
Randy Meyer, Assistant DA, Jefferson Parish. We are strongly opposed to Mr. Smith's request for parole. Listening to his responses to Mr. Marabella's questions, it was clear he wasn't being honest with the board. One thing he stated repeatedly, that he was following the wrong crowd, where our investigation and the indictment shows that he was a leader of that. Mr. Smith's activities included directed members to undertake acts of violence. He possessed weapons to promote the gang's aims, and he distributed quite a bit of drugs. There was 25. There's a witness who has observed him selling drugs around 25 times. The indictment and the bill of information shows that he was involved with that through 2015, February 26th of 2015. I believe he testified he left the gang in 2008 and wasn't involved with them in 2008. So that's a 7-year period that we show that he was still very much involved with that gang, with the gang activity. And I would suggest that Mr. Smith may not be here today, and neither would we if he hadn't left the gang in 2008 and was selling drugs on their turf. Something serious may have happened to him in that situation. Looking at his prison record, I don't see the rehabilitation that I'd like to see in order for someone to be granted parole. The record I looked at showed that he didn't complete phase 2 of the risk management model. He didn't complete living in balance and partners in parenting. He did complete some substance abuse programs, but he's indicated he's not a drug addict, although he's taken some of those courses and indicated that he would continue with some AA and NA when he is released. But really concerning is the disciplinary reports. He's had 5 disciplinary reports since 2020. The last was just over 1 year. And if I'm not mistaken, if his hearing would have been set in May, we wouldn't be here today because he would have been removed from the docket because of the disciplinary reports. I think he needs to show a period of, continue with programming. I think he needs to show a long period of being able to follow the rules before he is considered for release on parole. And again, we're strongly opposed to his release at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Mr. Smith, now it's your turn.
I just want to thank the board for giving me the opportunity to present myself. And I really know that not to God that same God. I let my family down. There's the visible. And I take pride in, the things that I accomplished. I do understand. I take full responsibility for my actions that I did in the past, but I can't live in the past. I gotta move forward. And if you keep holding my past against I'm not gonna succeed. If everybody keep holding my past against me, I'm not that guy anymore. And I just want a chance. That's all I'm asking. This is my first time ever throwing time. And last, and I can even say that I went from my family to this situation again. And I'm just asking the board for a second chance. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Appreciate your comments. Board ready to vote?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Smith, let me say that you're a very fortunate man. You've got a wonderful family, a very supportive family of people who are here speaking on your behalf. And, at some point when you get out, they're there for you. And I hope that you appreciate that and understand that. Mr. Smith, you looked at the board and you said, quit holding my past against me. This board considers what you did and what the crime is as one aspect of what we look at. We look at who you are today, and we look at how honest you have been with us today. I'm here to tell you, I think the only honest thing you said to me is that you love your family and that you realize that selling drugs was poisoning your community. I don't think you were totally honest with me today. I really don't. I think you're working in the right direction. I think you're moving in the right direction. You've taken some courses. You seem to be a hard worker while you've been in prison. And I'm not sure why all of a sudden the last 3 years you're getting all this disciplinary problems. You hadn't done that before that until you got it. But in the last 3 years, you've had a number of things. Now, of course, you said, well, the phone issue, you didn't seem to take responsibility for that. Although you apparently were convicted of that. I'm very concerned about your disciplinary problems. I'm very concerned about where you are. You're going to be getting out soon. You're going to get out year after next if nothing else happens. I'm going to suggest to you that you concentrate on yourself, concentrate on really focusing on what you did and how you did it and why you don't want to do it again and why you're not going to do it again. And to be honest, the next time you come before this board, I'm only one vote. There are 2 other votes. You may get some relief today. But my vote today is to deny, but to encourage you to continue forward with your hard work. Okay, Mr. Freeman.
Mr. Smith, I look at this. The only thing really concerns me is that disciplinary record. And it's just funny how it all popped up all of a sudden. You wasn't a disciplinary problem at all. And then you had those problems. But you served 8.5 years. It's the first time you've ever been in prison. And that's something I look at because fact of the matter is some people's eyes get wide open once they've served serious time. Some people's eyes never open up, end up back in the system doing serious time. And if you got caught again, you would do serious time. But today, with your circumstances, and I ain't gonna lie, I see through a lot what went on with you. I see it. I see it every day. I've seen it every day my entire career. I'm voting to grant. I would add a curfew on you. I would put electronic monitoring on you for the first 6 months. If you do go work offshore, we can adjust that. And I think you need to continue with the AA. I really do. Even if you're not a drug addict, I think it shows you what your dealing drugs was doing to other people. That's my vote.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Ms. Roche?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smith, I sat and I listened. I sat and I listened. I'm going to assure you of one thing. One thing, I'm not holding your past against you. I, like Mr. Freeman, understands why you did what you did today and when you understand. We have a lovely family. And you knew exactly what would happen to that family if you did anything other than you did when you didn't. Let's leave it at that. And I understand that. And this proceeding is on YouTube. You know exactly who's listening. And understand what you did today. But as Mr. Marabella said, honesty is of the utmost importance to us. Today is a day of truth. And I fully understand. I'm not going to hold anything you did against you in the past. But as everyone in this room that works for DOC knows that there's two things that I can't get by with. A terrible supervision history. Because why put somebody on supervision and they've been on supervision 4 or 5 times and they've failed? The second thing is your disciplinary record. If you can't follow the rules and regulations when you're incarcerated, how in the world are you going to follow rules and guidelines when you're on supervision? Based upon everybody saying 5, but I see 6 disciplinary write-ups between the years of 2020 and 2022. That very impressed me. The last one being in March of 2022. Actually, June 5th, 2022. Only 12.5 months ago. Based upon your disciplinary conduct that is totally unacceptable, I deny your request.
Thank you, Mr. Rocha. Mr. Smith, you have 1 vote to grant and 2 votes to deny. We've kind of given you, hopefully, a blueprint that'll help you. So good luck to you, sir. We're finished. We'll be adjourned here at DCI. Thank everyone for their help. 12:33.
And there you have it. That was interesting, and we'll unpack this. This was a big takedown involving the FBI, and you could see here Richard provided a lot of info on this, and I'll put the links in the description. Local task force honored by FBI director for taking down the Harvey Hustler street gang. This is dated 2016. So it was a task force that was involved over several years. They received an award from FBI Director James Comey. And for exceptional work and outstanding criminal investigation. This is the second time this year that the Harvey Hustlers Task Force has been recognized. In February, the New Orleans Metropolitan Criminal Division awarded the task force for excellence in law enforcement. So the group's effort resulted in the convictions of 65 people for violent or drug-related crimes, and culminating in January conviction of Robert Williams, the leader, who was given a 120-year sentence. 21 of the defendants were named in the racketeering indictment handed down, with another 18 named at the federal level. The Harvey Hustlers, along with the enforcement arm known as the Murder Squad, were responsible for 7 killings, including the shooting deaths of an 81-year-old woman and a 58-year-old man, both who were innocent bystanders. Other homicides include Dante Hall, who was gunned down on the sidewalk in 2013, Albert Bullock, who was shot in the Temple in a parking lot in 2011. The gang distributed heroin, cocaine, crack. It bought it from Houston, Scottsdale area. Okay. 2 elderly women and 3 toddlers were wounded during the botched execution in which 4 Harvey hustlers fired weapons repeatedly through the doorway in 2013. Toddlers. While the Harvey hustler traced their roots back to 1980, the task force effort began in 2009, and the murder rate in the parish fell by about 39% during that period. Saying it fell 39% when the task force began. Many of these convicted took pleas, which often happen in racketeering cases. So anyone with a previous record would have received at least a 20-year sentence, and overall the sentences range from 5 years to life. There's more information here on this. This is the appeal for that court case which they brought up on today's hearing, the one that he was subpoenaed to testify against his gang members, former gang members, whichever way you'll go about that. And it was interesting. Mr. Freeman, on that note, maybe is a good time to jump into that before we go back into this. Mr. Freeman surprised me. He actually said, you know what, I'll let you out. And I think he did that because he has a personal, and that is not the right word, but he said it's the thing he hates most about the court system is, and this caught me by surprise that he said this, but he does not like when they subpoena people, put them on the stand, and basically put them in a situation where they didn't make a deal, they didn't agree to do it beforehand, and they say, go and testify, put your life at risk, put your family's lives at risk. And hey, I agree with Mr. Freeman. It's ridiculous. Who's it benefiting? You're wasting time in court. You're putting people in, it's like, it seems to be like just lose-lose situations and not, doesn't seem to benefit anyone. Like, you think the jury is gonna have a takeaway from someone being put on the stand and then basically perjuring himself? It was interesting. It was pretty fascinating when, they're like, we know this is on YouTube. We know people are watching. We understand completely why you're saying what you're saying. That was, it is on YouTube. And I get it too. I also totally understand why he would have to say what he has to say. It's if he respects his own life and the life of his family, he has to, he can't, again, he's but there is something interesting that Randy Meyer brought up that seals the deal for me in terms of, in terms of, he came out, Paul Smith came out and said, I left the gang years ago. I was still dealing, but I left the gang years ago, and I haven't been involved since. And Randy Meyer said, guys, we wouldn't be here today if he actually left the gang because they would have offed him for dealing in their territory. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's a pretty good point, Randy. So, I don't know why Paul would have to be dishonest about that point. Why would he have to say that he had left the game? It doesn't, I don't understand the politics in that. And if he was just being dishonest, because he knew that would be his only chance where it would increase his chances of getting parole. But it seemed to me like that was a lie that wasn't protecting himself. If anything, you would think it would have been more dangerous for him to say that. It was like Mr. Freeman's. I think it was Mr. Freeman. He said, "You were worried about looking like a rat." And again, this is referring to when they subpoenaed him to show up in court and testify against. I think it was against the boss, not the boss, just another one of his members. And so yeah, to hold that against him, I totally agree. It's not fair. But they just basically forced him to perjure himself because he never agreed to it ahead of time. He never took a deal where he said, okay, I'm going to testify in exchange for less time. He just took a plea deal so that he wouldn't have to go to court. And then they subpoenaed him and threw him up on the stand and expected him to testify. It's ridiculous. It's a game. And I think that's simply the only reason why Mr. Freeman granted him, because he just does not like when people play those games. And I salute you, Mr. Freeman, because I agree. I think playing those games is just it's the good guys acting like thugs, frankly, in my opinion. So here's back into the details of the investigation. The FBI special agent Todd Schlium testified regarding the multi-agency investigation spanning the course of years of the Harvey Hustlers, recognized for the extreme acts of violence associated with distribution in Jefferson Parish. He said that there were over 100 total associates. The purpose was to make money through sale of narcotics. He explained that in 2005, in the time period following Hurricane Katrina, there was a limited supply of narcotics available. So the gang basically took off after Hurricane Katrina. There was no supplies, no one had anything, and they figured out how to get, and then they kind of controlled the basically supply and demand thing. So they were making a lot of money, and they had a lot of influence. The defendant's brother, was identified as the leader until he was taken out in 2010. It was discovered that time period, when the Harvey Hustlers were experiencing very profitable sales, there was an internal strain amongst the gang members vying for leadership positions, and a civil war broke out. Wow. Dividing the group into those who supported David Williams and those who supported the brother Melvin and Tremaine Hudson. Special Agent Schlium described that the events leading up to David Williams' assassination as a domino effect, beginning with the murder of Chad Jones, a close associate of David Williams. There's like a whole movie in here. He explained that when David Williams discovered that a fellow member, the name of Laval London, had participated in Jones' murder, David Williams had London killed in retaliation. Consequently, in retaliation for the murder of London, who was a close associate of Hudson brothers, David Williams was killed. They're basically just killing each other. And the Harvey Hustlers separated into subgroups based on their identified loyalties. And this was the murder squad, the young, black and successful YBS, while those loyal to David Williams and his brother defendant identified as HH. So maybe he was doing like a white lie when he said he left the gang. Maybe he splintered into a subgroup. So he was still in a gang, but he was, you get what I'm saying? When Paul told them that he had left, maybe that's what he was speaking between the lines. They go over the different investigative techniques they used to catch them. So basic surveillance, phone record analysis, witness interviews, confidential informants, control narcotic purchases, wiretaps. They were watching them for a long time. Regarding 2013 intercept wherein the defendant received a phone call of an unidentified female who alerted him that the police had been by his residence and reminded him to put his mojo in there. The defendant replied, "Yep, and my hammer." I wonder what that means. Here we go. Street vernacular for firearm. Special agent, why are they, it's like, why are you smoking mojo? If you're on top of your game, you're making probably 7 figures, you would just think, and you're still going to smoke mojo, though. Unless he was just selling it. I don't know. But anyways, special agents on the reference a firearm was stolen and been seized. Okay, detective. I assume it's 7 figures. I mean, to have 100 people in your gang controlling much of Louisiana market, you just. But who knows? It's I'll put the link in the description, but let's see if I think they mentioned, did they mention where Paul Smith comes? Here it is. Paul Smith testified that Paul Smith was brought up. He testified in his court that he was indicted along with the defendant and pled guilty to charges of racketeering, conspiracy to distribute, possession with intent to distribute, and possession with intent to distribute, all the different. He further admitted of being an active participant in the Harvey Hustlers, through which he engaged in various criminal acts, which included obtaining and selling narcotics. He testified that he did not recall the defendant being a member of the group. So this is what they were talking about. So they bring him up on the stand and they're like, do you know if, I forgot is a member of the group? And he said, no, I don't recall the defendant being a member of the group. Meanwhile, I think he was the former boss's brother, maybe the boss at the time. When the state confronted Smith with the factual basis made as part of his guilty plea, he testified that he did not recall accepting as true the statement that members of the enterprise who engaged in this activity on a daily basis included Robert Lil Rob Williams. So I guess in the document he signed, it included the verbiage that said that he's pleading guilty to all of this conspiracy, which included the actions of Lil Rob Williams. And then they subpoena him and say, hey, but you signed it saying this. It was further established that at the time of his guilty plea, he swore as true that enterprise members and their associates engage in acts of violence to protect their perceived interests in the enterprise members, exact revenge upon enemies in the enterprise members, punish enterprise members who conduct displease enterprise leaders, to develop reputation of the Harvey Hustlers as a group to be feared by the members of the community. This is interesting to see this again, like frame this. What they're referencing to now is the document that he would have signed when he took his deal. And they just pack all this language into that document, almost like a chess game, really, probably with in mind that they can subpoena him. And I just wonder how much leverage someone signing the document could have to say, look, I'll sign this and I'll say this, but don't include Little John's name in here. They probably have no leverage to say that, but Harry Smoot testified that he pleaded guilty in federal court to several charges. Is that it? Paul, there's 7 mentions. Paul Smith, special agent, also identified a music video entitled, oh, what's this? This is interesting. Special Agent Schliam also identified a music video entitled Every Snitch, depicting David Williams, aka Mr. Harvey, Kenny Boo, and Paul Smith as Buck. Huh. I wonder what that music video is about. Yeah, I'm just seeing if there's anything more here, but I don't. Anyways, it is interesting. So, you do see things kind of coming full circle. There's this really big gang that's causing a lot of problems. With the FBI, dismantle them. And now we're going to see many of these members getting up for a chance at parole. And it's almost like we're seeing in real time how this can work out, how it can affect, we're going to see over time more members. We might have seen other members of this gang come up, but we're probably going to see many more. We'll see how many get released. And as long as they keep streaming this on YouTube, we'll see how many get revoked, reoffend. It's it's certainly it's really interesting. There's a lot of people that probably feel certain ways. Gangs destroy communities. They can utterly destroy them. It's more than just the dealing. It's more than just the taking of lives. It's something much bigger than that. But what are your thoughts? I mean, how do you think this should be handled? And also, do you think he was being genuine about, were his tears real, or was it a form of manipulation? Was he being, really, was it authentic? But With that, I'll let you go. Please do the whole YouTube thing. It really helps. And I'll see you on the next one.